Stop what you're doing right now, because what I'm about to share will either transform your entire life or you'll ignore it and stay stuck in the same cycle for the next 10 years. Just a few days ago, I saw a man spend 20 minutes defending himself to someone who didn't even respect him. And I realized this is the story of countless men, begging for approval, tolerating disrespect, and living under invisible chains. But here's the truth. You weren't born lacking confidence. You were programmed to doubt yourself. 5 centuries ago, Machiavelli uncovered the real principles of power, rules that separate the ordinary from the unstoppable. If you're tired of being overlooked, underestimated, and controlled, then stay with me. Because in the next few moments, you'll discover the path that turns you from a man who gets ignored into a man who commands respect everywhere he goes. Point 1. Transform your inner self. Inside every man lives a silent war. A war not against society, not against enemies, but against himself. Within you, there are always 2 versions, the weak self and the strong self. The weak self is timid, afraid, and desperate for approval. It apologizes unnecessarily, it tolerates disrespect, it bends under pressure. It is like a slave that bows down to everyone else's expectations. Then there is the strong self, calm, unshakable, decisive. This version doesn't need to raise its voice to command respect. It doesn't need applause to feel worthy. It creates boundaries without guilt. It walks with dignity, and it transforms every room it enters. The tragedy of most men is that they spend their lives feeding the weak self. They allow fear to dictate their choices. They spend hours justifying themselves to people who have already judged them. They tolerate disrespect just to avoid conflict. And slowly, without even realizing it, they become prisoners of their own weakness. They wake up one day and wonder why nobody respects them, why nobody listens to them, why they feel invisible. The answer is simple. They have allowed the weak self to rule. Now think about your own life. How many times have you said sorry when no apology was necessary? How many times have you stayed silent when someone crossed a boundary just because you didn't want to create drama? How many times have you rejected an opportunity because fear whispered, "What if you fail?" Every single time you did that, you were feeding the weak self. You were making him stronger and the strong self inside you weaker. This is how men lose themselves, not in one dramatic moment, but in hundreds of small choices that quietly kill their power. But the opposite is also true. Every time you set a boundary, you feed the strong self. Every time you say no without guilt, you feed the strong self. Every time you wake up and choose discipline over comfort, you feed the strong self. And slowly, this version grows until it dominates. And when the strong self takes charge, everything in your outer world begins to shift. People look at you differently. They listen more carefully. They respect your silence. They treat your words as valuable. The transformation inside bends the world outside. Machiavelli, 5 centuries ago, revealed a brutal truth. Strength is not gifted. It is built choice by choice, decision by decision. You are not weak because of fate or family or destiny. You are weak because you have been making weak choices. And you will not become strong by accident. You will become strong when you begin to choose differently. Every decision you make is a brick. Either you are building an empire or you are tearing one down. Ask yourself, when you waste an hour scrolling endlessly through distractions, what empire are you building? Nothing. You are strengthening weakness. But when you invest that hour into learning, into building skills, into confronting challenges, you are constructing the empire of the strong self. The difference is invisible at first. 1 hour doesn't change a life. But stack that hour daily for months, and suddenly your entire identity shifts. The first real step of transformation is self-respect. And self-respect is not a feeling, it is a ritual. Begin your mornings by conquering yourself. Do something difficult the moment you wake up. Take a freezing cold shower. Push through a hard workout. Write down your fears honestly in a journal. Most men start their mornings by escaping, scrolling, snoozing, distracting. But when you begin by facing discomfort, you walk into the day like a man who has already won a battle. People will feel it in your energy. They won't know why, but they will respect you. The second step is boundaries. Weak men spend their lives saying yes because they are afraid of being disliked. But when you say yes to everything, you are actually saying no to yourself. The strong self knows that a clear no is more powerful than a hesitant yes. Watch carefully. The only people who get offended by your boundaries are those who wanted to use you in the first place. Those who truly value you will respect your limits. This is why boundaries are not selfish, they are sacred. They separate those who are real from those who are parasites. And then comes the hardest truth. You must detach from approval. Approval is poison disguised as sweetness. Every like, every clap, every smile of validation feels good in the moment, but it makes you weaker because you begin to depend on it. You start living not for yourself, but for the applause of others. Imagine two men at the gym. One constantly poses for pictures, seeking validation with every rep. The other trains in silence, no audience, no applause, only discipline. In the short term, the first man looks admired. But in the long term, the second man becomes unstoppable. Approval fades in hours. Discipline transforms for decades. To truly transform, you must rewire your inner dialogue. The weak self whispers, "I'm not good enough. I can't do this." And if you let these whispers play unchecked, they become the soundtrack of. The strong self, however, changes the script. I decide. I create. I dominate. I will not stop. And here's the truth. Your words shape your reality. Speak weakness and weakness multiplies. Speak power and power begins to bend the world around you. But perhaps the most important weapon of transformation is action. Fear grows in silence. The more you think, the larger fear becomes. But the moment you act, fear collapses. Action is the executioner of fear. Imagine fear whispering to you, "What if you fail?" The only response is movement. Take the step. Say the words. Enter the room. Even if your voice shakes, speak anyway. Even if your hands tremble, move anyway. You will discover that fear was only an illusion. It dies the moment you stop negotiating with it and start moving against it. Let me paint you a picture. Two men walk into the same room. The first avoids eye contact, his shoulders slouched, his words rushed. He apologizes for things that don't even require an apology. Instantly, the room senses weakness. The second man enters calmly. His posture is straight, his eyes steady, his pace controlled. He speaks less, but every word carries weight. Without saying anything extraordinary, people instinctively treat him with respect. What's the difference? The second man has transformed his inner self. His presence is a reflection of choices repeated thousands of times. His discipline speaks before his mouth does. His strength radiates before he even acts. And this is the truth you must accept. The world does not change for you until you change for yourself. If you keep feeding the weak self, the world will mirror that weakness back at you. People will dismiss you, exploit you, overlook you. But the moment you begin feeding the strong self, the world shifts. People begin respecting you, listening to you, noticing you, not because they suddenly changed, but because you did. Transformation is not one dramatic event. It is not a single breakthrough moment. Transformation is built in the small, invisible decisions you make daily. Each choice either adds a brick to your empire or removes one. Over time, those bricks form the man you become. So I leave you with this question. When you wake up tomorrow, which version of yourself will you feed? The weak one who bows, apologizes, and hides? Or the strong one who walks with dignity, acts with power, and commands respect without asking? The war inside you never ends, but every choice you make decides who wins today. Point 2. Build the fortress. Mind in life, the world will constantly test you, not with swords and shields, but with words, opinions, doubts, and endless distractions. Most men fall not because someone physically destroys them, but because their mind collapses under invisible pressure. If your mind is weak, everything else will eventually crumble. But if your mind is like a fortress, solid, unshakable, impenetrable, then nothing outside can destroy you. Think about history. Empires rose and fell, not because the walls broke first, but because the minds of leaders weakened. Machiavelli understood this deeply. He knew that a man's greatest strength is not his wealth, his army, or his reputation. It is the fortress of his own mind. Because if your mind is strong, even when the world attacks you, you will endure. Why most men have a fragile mind? Look around you today. How many men are controlled by social media, by gossip, by other people's opinions? They collapse when someone insults them online. They lose focus when their environment isn't perfect. They abandon their goals when they feel lonely or misunderstood. This is the tragedy of a fragile mind. It seeks comfort instead of strength. It wants validation instead of independence. It wants easy pleasure instead of meaningful struggle. It wants to avoid pain instead of using pain as fuel. Such a mind cannot build empires, cannot lead, cannot command respect. The fortress principle. Imagine an ancient fortress standing on a hill. High walls, guarded gates, watchtowers. Inside, the king is safe, untouchable. That fortress is your mind. Every day, life throws arrows of doubt, storms of criticism, and floods of fear. If your fortress has cracks, those arrows will pierce through and destroy you. But if your fortress is sealed, disciplined, and guarded, no force can break you. So the rule is simple. Before you build wealth, status, or power, you must build the fortress mind. How to build the fortress mind? 1. Control. What enters a fortress with open gates is already defeated. The same applies to your mind. Every piece of information, every opinion, every video you consume, it enters your mental gates. If you allow poison inside, don't be surprised when you feel weak. So ask yourself, what kind of books am I reading? What kind of people am I listening to? What kind of content am I feeding my brain daily? A strong man filters what enters his mental fortress. He allows wisdom, strategy, and knowledge in, but he rejects gossip, noise, and poison. Train through discomfort. A fortress is tested not in peace, but in war. Likewise, your mind grows not in comfort, but in hardship. When you deliberately step into discomfort, waking early, pushing your body in workouts, fasting, saying no to temptations, you are strengthening your mental walls. The weak man says, I'll wait until I feel ready. The strong man says, I'll act, even when I feel unready. Every small victory over discomfort is like adding another layer of stone to your fortress walls. Emotional mastery. The greatest enemy of the mind is uncontrolled emotion. Anger, fear, jealousy, insecurity. These are fires that burn the fortress from within. If you let them control you, enemies don't even need to attack. You will self-destruct. So practice emotional mastery. It doesn't mean you never feel emotions. It means you don't let emotions dictate your actions. When insulted, you remain calm. When afraid, you still move forward. When tempted, you remain disciplined. This calmness, this unshakable presence, is what makes leaders untouchable. The art of silence, a fortress, doesn't announce every move of its soldiers. In the same way, a strong mind doesn't reveal every thought, every plan, every feeling. Weak men overshare. They talk too much, they reveal too much, they make themselves predictable. A fortress mind is silent, observant, calculating. You listen more, you speak less. You let your results, your actions, and your silence create power. Resilience in solitude. Many men cannot stand being alone. They fear silence, they fear their own thoughts, so they drown themselves in noise and distractions. But solitude is where the fortress is reinforced. Great leaders of history spent hours, even years, in solitude, thinking, planning, strategizing. When you can be alone without fear, when you can sit with your own thoughts and sharpen them, your mind becomes unbreakable. Story illustration, let me give you an image. Picture two men standing before a storm. The first man has no shelter. The wind pushes him, the rain soaks him, and within minutes he collapses. The second man stands inside a fortress. The wind howls outside, the rain crashes against the walls, but inside he is calm, warm, untouched. The storm is life. The fortress is your mind. Which man are you? The daily fortress routine. To make this practical, here's how you start building your fortress mind every day. Morning gatekeeping. No phone, no social media, no noise as soon as you wake up. Begin with reading, writing, or reflection. Guard the gates, physical discipline. Push your body daily. When your body obeys, your mind follows. Strategic solitude. Spend at least 30 minutes daily in silence, thinking, planning, journaling. Information, filtering. Stop consuming content that makes you weak. Follow only what strengthens. Emotional check. Whenever emotions rise, pause, breathe, respond. Don't react. Do this daily, and within months, you will feel your fortress becoming unshakable. Final lesson of point 2. Remember this. The weak man seeks comfort outside. The strong man builds power inside. If your mind is fragile, even the smallest insult can break you. But if your mind is a fortress, even when the whole world attacks, you remain untouchable. Your body may tire, your wealth may fluctuate, people may betray you, but as long as your fortress mind stands, you will never be conquered. Point 3. The law of detachment. One of the most dangerous traps for any man is attachment. Attachment to people, to opinions, to comfort, to things he cannot control. Weak men live like slaves, chained not by iron, but by invisible strings of attachment. They are terrified of losing approval, terrified of losing possessions, terrified of being alone. And because of this fear, they are controlled. But here's the truth. Power begins the moment you detach. When nothing outside of you has chains on your mind, no one can use it against you. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He observed that rulers who became too attached to their image, to their allies, to their possessions, eventually fell. Why? Because enemies always know how to pull the strings of attachment. The man who fears losing is already defeated. Why attachment is weakness? Think carefully. If you are attached to people's opinions, one insult can break you. If you are attached to money, one financial loss will paralyze you. If you are attached to relationships, one rejection will shatter you. If you are attached to comfort, one hardship will destroy you. Attachment is dependency, and dependency is weakness. The strong man flips the equation. He says, I own things, but they don't own me.
I value people, but they don't control me. I enjoy comfort, but I don't need it. That mindset is freedom.
That mindset is power. The warrior's detachment. Imagine a warrior going into battle. If he is attached to survival, he hesitates, he panics, he loses. But if he is detached from fear of death, he fights with clarity and courage. Ironically, detachment makes him far more likely to win. The same applies to life. If you walk into negotiations desperate for approval, you lose leverage. If you enter relationships desperate for love, you lose respect. But when you are detached, when you need nothing, you walk with authority. How to practice. Detachment 1. Detach from outcomes. Most men are obsessed with results. They act, not because they love the process, but because they are desperate for outcomes, money, recognition, success. And when the outcome delays, they collapse. But the fortress mind operates differently. Do the work because it builds you, not because of the reward. If the reward comes, good. If it doesn't, you are still unshakable. Detach from opinions. Opinions are the cheapest currency of the weak.
Everyone has them, everyone throws them, and most men collect them like gold.
But the truth? They are worthless. Strong men don't live for applause, and they don't die from criticism. They live by principle, by strategy, by inner law. Ask yourself daily, if no one clapped, if no one approved, would I still do this? If the answer is yes, then you are walking the path of strength. Detach from comfort. Comfort is a silent poison. It whispers, well, relax, don't push today. You've done enough. But comfort weakens you while pretending to care for you. Detach from comfort. Choose discomfort deliberately. Cold showers, fasting, difficult conversations, long hours of work. Each time you reject comfort, you're telling your mind, I control you, not the other way around. Detach from possessions. Luxury is dangerous when it owns you. Cars, clothes, houses, if your identity depends on them, you are not a king. You are a servant of your own toys. Detach by reminding yourself, I enjoy what I own, but if I lose it, I remain the same man. True wealth is not measured by how much you own, but by how little owns you. Detach from relationships. This is the hardest. Most men fear being alone, so they tolerate disrespect, manipulation, or weakness from others. But here's the rule. Never attach your self-worth to another human being. Respect people, love them, enjoy them, but don't need them. The moment someone realizes you can't live without them, they control you. Attachment gives you the power to walk away. And the man who can walk away is always the one with true leverage. The paradox of detachment. Here's the irony: when you are detached, you attract more. When you don't chase approval, you earn respect. When you don't beg for love, you become more attractive. When you don't cling to money, opportunities flow toward you. Because detachment creates confidence. Confidence creates power. And power draws everything toward it. Real-life example. Think of history's greatest men: Marcus Aurelius, Alexander the Great, Machiavelli himself. What set them apart was not just their intelligence, but their detachment. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor, reminded himself daily, you can lose everything today and still remain who you are. Alexander risked his life countless times, detached from fear of death, and because of that, men followed him across the world. Machiavelli advised rulers, love is uncertain, respect is not. Detach from needing affection, rule through strength. Detachment is not coldness. It is clarity. It is freedom from chains. Daily practice for detachment. Silent reflection. Ask yourself each morning, what am I afraid of losing? Then imagine yourself without it. If the thought destroys you, you know where you're attached. Work on it. Discomfort training. Regularly deny yourself pleasures. Skip a meal. Sit in silence. Avoid unnecessary luxury. Each denial strengthens detachment. Minimalism drill. Once a month, give something valuable away. Teach your mind that possessions don't own you. Walk away power. Practice saying no. Walk away from situations, deals, or people who don't align with your standards. Each walk away is a declaration of freedom. The core lesson of point 3 attachment is slavery. Detachment is freedom. The man who fears losing is already lost. The man who can walk away from anything yet still remain himself, that man is unstoppable. Detach, not because you don't care, but because you care about your freedom more. When you are free, you are powerful. And when you are powerful, the world bends to you. Point 4, mastering strategic silence. Silence. A single word, yet one of the most underestimated forces in human interaction. Weak men run from silence. They feel uncomfortable in it. They fear the pause, and they rush to fill every second with words. But powerful men, they understand that silence is not emptiness, it is energy. Silence is a weapon sharper than a sword, heavier than a throne, and more terrifying than any roar. Machiavelli observed that rulers who could not control their tongue often lost their power. Why? Because words reveal weaknesses. Words expose intentions. And once your intentions are clear, your enemies can calculate you, manipulate you, and eventually destroy you. But when you stay silent, strategically silent, you remain unreadable. And what cannot be read cannot be controlled. Why silence is feared. Let me ask you, when you sit across a man who just listens, who doesn't rush to speak, who lets silence stretch, don't you feel uneasy? Don't you start wondering what he's thinking? Don't you start doubting yourself? That is the hidden power of silence. Noise is predictable. Silence is mysterious. Noise makes you ordinary. Silence makes you untouchable. The weakness of endless. Talk. Most men believe talking makes them powerful. They explain themselves, they defend themselves, they argue endlessly. But what really happened? The more you talk, the more weaknesses you reveal. The more you talk, the more predictable you become. The more you talk, the less weight your words carry. Words are like currency. If you flood the market with too much currency, its value collapses. In the same way, if you flood conversations with endless words, your voice loses power. But when you make words rare, every word becomes priceless. The fortress of silence. Think of your mind as a fortress. Every word you speak is like opening the gate. Speak too much, and soon everyone knows your strategies, your fears, your desires. But keep the gates closed, stay silent, and outsiders are left guessing. And the more they guess, the more they respect. The rules of strategic silence. Silence creates. Mystery Humans fear the unknown more than anything. When you don't reveal your thoughts, people project their imagination onto you. They start thinking, does he know something I don't? Is he planning something? Is he stronger than me? And often, their imagination exaggerates your power beyond reality. Silence forces, confession in negotiation, silence is deadly.
Speak less. Ask a short question, then stay silent. Most people panic.
They can't handle the weight of silence, so they rush to fill it with words. And in those words, they reveal more than they planned. Weaknesses, doubts, fears. You gain information without effort. Silence protects authority leaders. Who talk too much lose respect. Leaders who remain silent until the right moment command attention. When they finally speak, every word is heard. Why? Because silence made their words rare, and rarity creates value. Silence is emotional control. Weak men argue. Weak men shout when provoked. Weak men defend themselves when insulted, but strong men remain calm, silent. But silence is not weakness, it is emotional mastery. And nothing terrifies an enemy more than a man who cannot be provoked. Silence in relationships. Arguments often escalate because both sides keep fueling the fire with words. But the one who chooses silence gains control. Silence sets boundaries. It tells others, my attention is rare, my energy is not free. Earn it. Stories and examples. Picture this. Two generals meet before battle. The first one speaks endlessly about his army, his strategies, his confidence. The second one listens quietly, occasionally nodding. When asked about his plan, he simply says, "You'll see tomorrow." Who holds the power? The talkative general or the silent one? The silent one. His mystery creates fear. His silence is more powerful than 1,000 words. Or think of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor. He ruled not with endless speeches, but with measured words and long silences. His soldiers said they feared his silence more than his orders, because his silence forced them to reflect on their own mistakes. Even in modern life, in business, the negotiator who speaks less usually wins. In relationships, the partner who doesn't beg for attention gains more respect. In conflict, the man who doesn't react immediately often gains the upper hand. Practical ways to master silence. Pause before responding. When someone asks you a question, don't rush. Pause 3 to 5 seconds. Shows confidence and makes people lean in to hear your words. Answer with questions. Instead of explaining yourself endlessly, throw the ball back. Why do you ask?
Or what do you think?
This keeps them talking while you stay in control. Limit your words. When you do speak, be short and precise. A short sentence delivered with calmness carries more power than a long speech filled with insecurity. Use silence as punishment. When someone disrespects you, don't argue. Withdraw your words. Withdraw your presence. Silence is the highest form of punishment. It tells them they are not worth your energy. Observe instead of reacting. Train yourself to listen more than you speak. Most people reveal everything if you let them talk long enough. Your silence collects information, and information is power. Reflection. Questions. How many times did I defend myself today when silence would have been stronger? How many times did I overshare just to fill an awkward silence? How many secrets of others have I learned simply by staying quiet? Every honest answer shows you where to improve. The core lesson of Point 4 silence is not emptiness, it is presence. Silence is not weakness, it is power. Silence is not ignorance, it is strategy. The man who masters silence does not need to prove himself. He lets the world guess, and in that guessing, the world gives him power. So learn to hold your tongue.
Learn to pause.
Learn to watch others reveal themselves while you remain unreadable. Because when you master strategic silence, you master control, not just of your words, but of every room you walk into. Point 5, the power of controlled presence. There is a hidden currency in every room, every gathering, every stage of life. It's not money, not status, not even words. It is presence. Some men walk into a room and immediately command attention without saying a word, without making a sound.
Others speak loudly, move constantly, yet remain invisible, unnoticed, and forgettable. The difference
Presence. Presence is not about being loud, nor about being everywhere. True presence is about being felt, a force that makes people turn their heads, lower their voices, and adjust their behavior the moment you enter. But presence, like silence, cannot be faked. It must be controlled, cultivated, and mastered. Why presence matters. Humans are not logical first, they are emotional and instinctive. We sense energy before we process words. We feel someone's strength, calmness, or authority before they even open their mouth. This is why some people are instantly respected and others instantly dismissed. Niccolo Machiavelli wrote that rulers must not only hold power, but also be seen to hold power. Presence is that visible form of invisible strength. Without it, even your real power remains unnoticed. With it, even the illusion of power can dominate. The weakness of scattered presence. Most men make the mistake of trying to be everywhere, trying to be available at every call, present at every conversation, active in every discussion. They spread themselves thin. What happens then? Their presence loses weight.
People stop valuing their time.
Their voice becomes background noise. When you are always available, you become ordinary. But when you are rare and controlled, your presence becomes precious. The core rule, less is more. Controlled presence means you do not show up everywhere. You choose your moments carefully. You appear when it matters most. You leave before your value fades. Like a rare gem, your scarcity makes you valuable. The science of presence, modern psychology shows that humans subconsciously measure power in 3 ways. Space. Those who occupy more space with calmness are seen as dominant. Energy. Those who radiate composed, steady energy appear powerful. Time. Those who are not rushed, who move and speak slowly, are seen as higher status. Controlled presence uses all 3, commanding space, controlling energy, and stretching time. The rules of controlled presence. Enter with purpose, never rush into a room. Walk in slowly, deliberately. Every step should signal calm authority. A man who hurries communicates weakness, as if seeking approval. A man who controls his entry already controls the room. Speak less. Observe. More presence is not about dominating conversation. It is about controlling them. When you speak less, people listen more. When you observe quietly, people reveal themselves. And when you finally speak, your words carry weight because they are rare. Use stillness. Most men fidget, move constantly, touch their phone, adjust their clothes. This betrays insecurity. The man who remains still, controlled, unmoving, he becomes magnetic. Stillness is power. Stillness is presence. Control. Your energy radiates before your words. Nervous energy spreads anxiety.
Chaotic energy spreads confusion.
But calm energy spreads respect. People feel safer, stronger, more stable around you. That is why kings sat on thrones, still, calm, untouchable. Master the exit presence is not only how you enter, it's how you leave.
Never linger until you fade into the background.
Leave while your presence is still felt so that the absence creates respect. The most powerful men leave others thinking, we wanted more, but he is already gone. Stories and examples. Example 1. Alexander the Great. It was said that Alexander could silence a room simply by walking in. He was not the tallest, not the loudest, but he carried an aura of calm authority. His generals described his eyes as burning with purpose. He mastered controlled presence by limiting his appearances, speaking rarely, but always decisively. Example 2. Modern leaders. Think of leaders like Steve Jobs. He didn't speak at every meeting, didn't attend every event. But when he did appear, when he did speak, the room stopped breathing. Why? Because his presence was controlled, rare, intense, and purposeful. Example 3. A social gathering picture. 2 men at a dinner. The first one talks constantly, interrupts, tries to dominate. The second one listens quietly, occasionally nods, then delivers a single, sharp observation.
Who do people remember at the end of?
Not the loud man, the controlled one. Practical ways to build. Controlled presence. Control. Your breathing. Deep, slow breathing calms your body and radiates stability. Shallow, rushed breathing signals weakness. Hold eye contact. Not aggressive staring, but calm, steady eye contact. This communicates confidence and self-control. Pause before speaking. Silence before words magnifies presence, makes people lean in waiting for your response. Refuse to be everywhere, say no more often. Appear only where your presence truly matters. This creates scarcity, and scarcity creates value. Sit or stand tall posture is silent authority. A slouched man disappears. A tall, calm man dominates without effort. Presence in relationships. Controlled presence is not only for power and leadership, it is also magnetic in personal life. A man who is not constantly texting, not always available, becomes more respected. A partner who chooses silence instead of endless arguments becomes more valued. A father who is calm, steady, and firm without many words becomes more admired by his children. Presence builds respect. Lack of presence breeds contempt. Reflection. Questions. Do people notice when I walk into a room, or do I blend in? Do I over-explain myself, or do I let my silence create weight? Am I available to everyone, everywhere, or do I protect my presence like a rare jewel? The core lesson of Point 5 Controlled Presence is the art of being rare, calm, and deliberate. It is knowing when to appear, how to appear, and when to disappear. It is silence turned into aura, stillness turned into power. The weak man tries to be everywhere, to be seen by everyone, to fill every silence. The strong man knows scarcity is power.
Mystery is power.
Controlled presence is power. So the next time you walk into a room, remember, do not chase attention. Command it. Do not fight for space. Own it. Do not waste your presence. Control it. Because when you master controlled presence, the world does not just see you, it feels you. Point 6, turning. Patience into a weapon. Patience is misunderstood. Most men think patience means waiting, sitting quietly, doing nothing, tolerating everything. But real patience, the kind that wins wars, builds empires, and transforms men, is not passive. It is active, deliberate, and strategic. Patience is not weakness. It is not submission. It is not sitting like a slave hoping for mercy. Patience is a weapon.
A sword kept hidden until the exact right moment.
A bow pulled back, waiting for the perfect release. A storm that gathers in silence, then destroys everything when unleashed. The weak man is impatient. He wants results today, recognition now, revenge immediately. And because he cannot wait, he makes mistakes. He rushes into traps. He burns his opportunities before they are ripe. But the strong man understands time is a weapon and patience is how you sharpen it. Why impatience destroys power? Impatience is the mark of weakness. It makes a man predictable, emotional, reckless. Think about it. The impatient man cannot build wealth because he wants fast money. He falls for schemes, gambles, and shortcuts. The impatient man cannot build love because he pushes, pressures, and suffocates until his partner loses respect. The impatient man cannot lead because he reacts instead of waiting, he speaks instead of listening, he reveals his hand before the game has even begun. Impatience exposes you. It shows your enemy your weakness.
It makes you easy to manipulate. The strength of patience. Now imagine the opposite, the man who waits.
The man who can endure discomfort, who can sit in silence, who can delay gratification, who can control his hunger for immediate results. In business, he waits for the right deal instead of chasing scraps. In relationships, he waits for respect to grow instead of forcing affection. In conflict, he waits for the enemy to reveal himself instead of striking blindly. This man is dangerous.
Because patience gives him clarity.
Patience makes him unpredictable. Patience turns time into his ally. Historical lessons. The siege of Troy. The Greeks waited 10 long years outside the walls of Troy. They could have rushed, attacked blindly, lost everything. Instead, they waited, watched, and finally used patience to strike with the Trojan horse. That single act of controlled patience won them the war. Machiavelli's Prince Machiavelli taught that rulers must sometimes wait even when it hurts, because rash actions destroy kingdoms, but patient actions expand them. He wrote, "He who masters time masters everything." At Genghis Khan, the Mongols were fast riders, fierce warriors, but even they used patience. They would surround a city, cut off supplies, and wait for starvation to break the enemy. They knew that waiting could kill more effectively than swords. The psychology of patience is not just about time, it is about control over emotion. The impatient man is ruled by his feelings.
Anger pushes him to speak too soon.
Desire pushes him to act too soon. Fear pushes him to retreat too soon. But the patient man,
he feels all and still holds the line.
He trains his emotions to serve him, not to command him. That is why patience is power, because it shows you control yourself first before you try to control the world. How to turn patience into a weapon. Delay reaction. When insulted, do not react immediately. Let silence be your shield. The impatient man explodes and everyone sees his weakness. The patient man smiles, waits, and then chooses the moment of response when it will have maximum impact. Control time in negotiations. In any deal, the one who can wait longer holds the power. Let the other side sweat. Let them feel the pressure of silence. The more desperate they become, the stronger you become. Endure boredom. Weak men need constant stimulation. Strong men can endure silence, stillness, boredom, because they know growth hides there. Reading, training, saving money all require patience. Strategic retreat. Sometimes patience means stepping back, not because you lost, but because you are waiting to strike when the enemy is weakest. Retreat today, conquer tomorrow. Master, long games, empires, wealth, legacies, they are not built in weeks. They take decades. Patience is the discipline of long games. The man who can think in decades will always dominate the man who thinks in days. The power of waiting in relationships. Patience also decides respect in relationships. The desperate man sends 10 messages, demands quick answers, shows his neediness. The patient man holds back, controls his presence, waits. And because he waits, his value rises. In family life, patience prevents conflict from exploding. Instead of shouting back immediately, the patient man waits, breathes, and then speaks with power instead of panic. Every day, training for patience, practice, silence. Spend 30 minutes each day without phone, noise, or distraction. Train your mind to be still. Train with discipline, workout routines, fasting, delayed rewards. These teach your body to wait, to endure.
Observe others. Watch how impatient people destroy themselves.
Learn from their mistakes without repeating them. Use the 24-hour rule. Never send an angry message, make a big decision, or take revenge without waiting at least one day. In 24 hours, emotion fades and clarity grows. Story. The chess master, a young player, once grew frustrated in a chess game. He attacked too early, thinking he could win quickly. The master smiled, defended calmly, and waited. Piece by piece, the impatient player lost everything. The lesson? In chess, like in life, patience is the ultimate strategy. Reflection. Questions. Do I rush into decisions out of fear or desire? Do I waste my strength by reacting too quickly? Do I value the long game, or am I addicted to short results? The core lesson of point 6 patience is not weakness, it is a hidden blade. The world thinks you are doing nothing, but you are watching, preparing, waiting. And when the time is right, you strike with precision. Impatience makes men reckless. Patience makes men kings. So train yourself to wait when others rush, to hold silence when others shout, to think in decades when others think in days, because when patience becomes your weapon, you no longer chase opportunities, they chase you. You no longer fall into traps, you watch others destroy themselves. And in the end, the man who masters patience does not just survive, he conquers. Point 7. The discipline of emotional control. A man who cannot control his emotions is not a man, he is a puppet. His strings are pulled by anyone who can make him angry, anyone who can make him jealous, anyone who can make him afraid. Think about it. If I can make you lose your temper, I control you. If I can make you desperate for approval, I control you. If I can make you panic with fear, I control you. This is why the strongest men in history, the most feared leaders, the most respected warriors, all shared one hidden skill, the discipline of emotional control. Why emotional control equals power is not only about wealth, armies, or influence. True power begins inside.
If you cannot govern yourself, you cannot govern others.
If you cannot rule your emotions will rule you. Machiavelli warned rulers, anger, fear, love. These emotions can blind a leader. The prince who makes decisions in rage destroys his own kingdom. The ruler who acts in fear loses his people's respect. The man who cannot hide his feelings is predictable, and predictability is weakness. The trap of emotional slavery. Most men today are emotional slaves. Their anger makes them shout, fight, break things, and then regret. Their jealousy makes them spy, beg, cling, and then lose respect. Their fear makes them hesitate, avoid risk, and then miss opportunity. Such men are easy prey. Others can provoke them, manipulate them, and control them like children. The strength of emotional discipline. Now imagine a man who feels the same emotions but does not let them control him. He feels anger but does not explode. He channels it into action. He feels fear but does not freeze. He uses it as awareness. He feels desire but does not beg. He lets attraction come to him. This man is rare.
This man is dangerous.
Because no one can control him. Historical lessons 1. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor. Marcus Aurelius ruled Rome at its height. Surrounded by wars, betrayals, and plagues, he should have drowned in fear and anger.
Instead, he wrote in his journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." His empire stood strong because he ruled himself first. Genghis Khan, the mask of calm, though feared for his brutality.
Genghis Khan mastered emotional control. In negotiations, he appeared calm even when insulted. He let others underestimate him, then struck when they revealed weakness. His enemies lost control. He never did. Modern example, Nelson Mandela. After 27 years in prison, Mandela emerged without bitterness.
He could have chosen revenge, but he chose control.
His emotional discipline not only freed him, but united a divided nation. The psychology of emotions are energy. But most men discharge this energy recklessly through shouting, overreacting, overthinking. Emotional control means redirecting energy into strength.
Anger, fuel for discipline, training, building.
Fear, sharpened awareness, calculated caution. Sadness, reflection, deeper meaning. Desire, motivation to improve, not desperation. The difference is not in emotion itself, it is in control. How to build emotional discipline. Pause. Before reaction, when provoked, do not react instantly. Take 3 deep breaths or count to 10. This simple pause shifts control from impulse to intelligence. Master your face and voice. Never let emotions leak uncontrollably. Keep your face neutral, your voice calm. The more others wonder what you're feeling, the more power you have. Train in discomfort. Expose yourself to cold, hunger, silence, fatigue. By enduring discomfort without panic, you train yourself to rule emotions even in chaos. Detach from approval. If you depend on praise or fear rejection, emotions will rule you. Practice acting without needing claps or permission. Reframe your mind. Instead of saying, "I am angry," say, "Anger is passing through me." This distance weakens emotions' grip. The art of emotional masking sometimes. Emotional control means not showing what you feel. When insulted, smile. When afraid, remain still. When excited, act calm. This does not mean lying. It means refusing to give others your inner power.
Let them guess.
Let them wonder. The less they know, the stronger you appear. Emotional control. In relationships, emotional discipline transforms relationships. A man who does not beg, chase, or explode earns respect. A father who controls anger teaches by example, not by shouting. A leader who stays calm in crisis gives his people confidence. In love, in family, in leadership, control creates respect. Reflection. Questions. Do I reveal too much when I am angry, afraid, or jealous? Do others manipulate me by pushing my emotional buttons?
Am I the master of my emotions or their slave?
The core lesson of Point 7 Discipline of Emotional Control is not about being cold or emotionless. It is about choosing when and how to show emotions. The weak man is an open book, his feelings written on his face, easy to read, easy to exploit. The strong man feels deeply but reveals selectively. Remember, anger is a fire. Use it to forge steel, not to burn your house. Fear is a signal. Use it to prepare, not to retreat. Desire is energy. Use it to build, not to beg. Master yourself, and no one can master you. Fail to master yourself, and the world will play you like a toy. The man who rules his emotions rules his destiny. Point 8. The art of calculated. Risk. Most men live two kinds of lives. The life of fear, where they avoid risk, stay safe, never dare, and slowly die in comfort. The life of recklessness, or where they jump blindly, gamble with everything, and destroy themselves too early. But between these two extremes lies the rarest path, the art of calculated risk. Taking risks is not stupidity. It is not gambling. It is not closing your eyes and hoping for luck. Calculated risk is the discipline of measuring danger, weighing the odds, preparing the ground, and then stepping forward with courage when others hesitate. History has never been written by the safest men, nor by the most reckless men. It has always been written by those who knew how to calculate risk and then move when the time was right. Why risk matters? Risk is the price of greatness. You cannot build an empire, create wealth, win love, or shape history without stepping into the unknown. Every victory, every legacy, every achievement is born from risk. The man who never risks rejection never experiences love. The man who never risks loss never builds wealth. The man who never risks failure never touches success. But the man who risks recklessly loses everything. The art is in calculation. The weakness of avoiding. Risk. Most men live as prisoners of fear. They say, well, what if I fail? What if they laugh? What if I lose everything? So they never start. They never speak.
They never fight.
And in the end, their life becomes exactly what they feared most: failure, ridicule, loss. Because avoiding risk is itself the greatest risk, the foolishness of reckless risk. On the other side are reckless men. They see risk and charge blindly. They invest without research, fight without preparation, trust without testing. They mistake boldness for wisdom, and soon they are destroyed, not because they risked, but because they risked without calculation. What is calculated risk? Calculated risk is balance, boldness plus preparation, courage plus strategy, timing plus execution. It is asking, what can I gain? What can I lose? How do I protect myself if things go wrong? What is the best timing for this move? The reckless man does not ask these. The coward avoids these. The strong man masters these. Historical lessons. Caesar crossing the Rubicon. When Julius Caesar marched his army across the Rubicon River, he risked civil war. But it was a calculated risk. He had the loyalty of his soldiers, the weakness of his enemies, and the timing of opportunity. The risk was enormous, but the calculation was precise, and Rome fell into his hands. The Mongols and siege warfare. The Mongols were fearless warriors, but they were not reckless. When facing walled cities, they did not rush blindly. They studied the walls, cut supplies, weakened morale, then attacked at the perfect moment. Risk was always calculated. Modern example, Elon Musk risked his fortune on Tesla and SpaceX. But it was not blind risk. He calculated timing when electric cars were becoming viable, market demand, and technological readiness. His boldness was fueled by preparation. The psychology of risk is fear in disguise. The brain screams, "Don't do it!" Stay safe, survive. But survival is not the same as living. Calculated risk means mastering the psychology of fear. It means hearing fear's warning but not obeying it blindly. It means separating real danger from imagined danger.
Real danger, walking into fire without protection.
Imagined danger, speaking up, starting a business, asking for opportunity. Most men confuse the two. The strong man separates them. How to master calculated risk. Gather intelligence, never move blind. Study the enemy, the market, the people, the environment. Information turns risk into opportunity. Weigh the odds, ask. What is the worst possible outcome?
Can I survive it?
If yes, move forward. If no, prepare morphe. Protect the downside, always build safety nets. Keep reserves of money, allies, or escape plans. The reckless man burns all bridges. The wise man always keeps a way out. Time the strike patience is half of risk. Do not act too early or too late. The best risk takers wait for timing, then move fast and hard. Accept uncertainty. No risk is perfect. No calculation is flawless. You must accept that some uncertainty will always remain. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is movement despite fear. Practical exercises daily. Small risks. Speak up when you normally stay silent. Try something new. Train your mind to embrace controlled uncertainty. Write risk scenarios. For every major decision, write best case, worst case, and middle case. Prepare for all three.
Limit recklessness. Never bet everything on one move.
Spread your risks across areas of life. Review failures. Study your past mistakes, which were due to poor calculation. Learn the patterns. Create controlled pressure. Put yourself in situations that test your courage. Public speaking, competitions, negotiations. These build your tolerance for risk. Story. The warrior and the bridger general once led his army to a battlefield across a single bridge. His men hesitated. If they lost, retreat was impossible. But the general burned the bridge behind them. Suddenly risk became necessity. They fought with unmatched courage and won. But notice, he did not burn the bridge recklessly. He calculated. He knew his men were strong, the enemy weak, and retreat would only breed cowardice. His risk was bold but precise. Calculated risk in relationships. Even in relationships, risk rules everything. Asking for commitment is risk. Setting boundaries is risk. Walking away is risk. The coward avoids these risks and ends up unloved. The reckless man forces these risks and ends up alone. The wise man chooses moments carefully, speaks with calm power, and risks only what he can afford to lose. Reflection. Questions. Do I avoid risk out of fear, and by doing so, destroy my chances? Do I take reckless risks without preparation, and by doing so, destroy myself? Do I calculate risk, protect my downside, and then move with courage? The core lesson of Point 8 calculated risk is the dividing line between mediocrity and greatness. The coward stays safe and dies forgotten. The reckless charges blindly and dies early. The calculated man risks with wisdom, strikes with timing, and builds empires. Remember, risk is not the enemy. Blindness is, fear is not the problem.
Inaction is.
Failure is not the end. It is tuition for mastery, so take risks but calculate them. Protect yourself but move forward. Wait for timing but do not freeze forever. Because life rewards not the safest, not the craziest, but the man who dares wisely. And when you learn the art of calculated risk, you stop gambling with your life, you start designing it. Point 9, building the iron. Will most men fail not because they lack opportunity, intelligence, or resources? They fail because they lack willpower. Talent without will collapses. Wealth without will disappears. Intelligence without will becomes wasted potential. The strongest weapon a man can ever forge is not the sword in his hand, not the money in his bank, not the crown on his head. It is the iron will that bends reality to his desire. What is the iron will? The iron will is not stubbornness. It is not blind refusal to change. It is the discipline of unbreakable persistence, the refusal to bow before hardship, rejection, or failure. A stubborn man breaks when the storm comes. A weak man flees when the storm comes. But a man with iron will bends, adapts, survives, and eventually conquers. The iron will is forged, not given. No one is born with it. It is hammered by hardship, tested by trials, sharpened by pain. Why iron will decides everything. History shows us one law: the man with stronger will wins, even against stronger armies, greater wealth, or higher intelligence. Alexander the Great conquered empires before the age of 30, not because of numbers, but because of will. Gandhi, a frail man with no weapons, broke the back of an empire through willpower alone. Churchill kept Britain alive against impossible odds through the force of will in his words and actions. Power, resources, intelligence, they matter, but willpower decides whether you rise or collapse. The weakness of ordinary will: most men quit too soon. They start a project with fire, then give up at the first failure. They enter relationships with passion, then abandon at the first conflict. They begin training their body, then stop when it hurts. Their will is like glass, sharp at first, but shatters under pressure. The iron will, in contrast, is like steel, tested by fire, hammered into strength, impossible to break. The process of forging iron will is not magic. It is training. It is built through discipline. Embrace hardship. The man who avoids pain will always remain weak. The iron will is built by walking willingly into discomfort. Cold, hunger, rejection, fatigue. These are not enemies. They are blacksmiths forging your will. Controlled desire willpower collapses when a man is slave to his desires. Food, lust, comfort, entertainment. These are chains. The man who can master his desires, not kill them but control them, becomes free. Daily discipline. The iron will is not created in one grand battle.
It is created in thousands of small choices. Wake up when you don't want to.
Work when you are tired. Speak when you are afraid. Continue when you feel finished. Each act is a hammer strike on the forge of your soul. Purpose. Above pleasure, a man without purpose will always break. The iron will is anchored in a vision greater than pain, greater than fear. Purpose is fuel. When others collapse, the man of purpose continues because his will is chained to destiny. Repetition of resistance. The brain learns by repetition. Each time you resist temptation, endure hardship, or finish what you start, your willpower strengthens like muscles underweight. Historical lessons. Hannibal crossing the Alps. Hannibal led his army, including war elephants, across the frozen Alps to strike Rome. The journey destroyed most of his army, but his iron will carried them through. The Romans thought it impossible. Hannibal's will made it reality. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison. Most men would break. He emerged unbroken, sharper than ever, ready to lead a nation. His body was chained, but his will remained free. Japanese samurai. The samurai trained their will by constant exposure to death. They meditated daily on their own mortality. The result: fear could not control them. Their will was forged by discipline stronger than steel. The psychology of will is the power to delay gratification, to say not now to weakness and yes to strength. Science shows that willpower is like a muscle. It grows stronger with use, weaker with neglect. But unlike muscles, it grows from both resistance and purpose. Fear weakens will. Purpose strengthens will. Repetition makes will automatic. Practical training for iron. Will 1. Voluntary discomfort. Train yourself to accept discomfort. Take cold showers.
Fast once a week.
Walk instead of drive. Sleep less when required. By choosing discomfort, you build resistance to pain. Finish what you start. Every time you quit, your will weakens. Every time you finish, your will strengthens. Even finishing small tasks builds iron will. Discipline. The body physical training is the fastest way to train willpower. Push when muscles burn. Lift when you want to stop. Run when you want to quit. The body obeys the will or the will is weak. Silence and focus Spend time in silence.
Remove distraction.
Train the mind to focus without breaking. A wandering mind creates weak will. A focused mind creates iron will. Purpose. Writing. Write down your purpose daily.
Remind yourself why you fight.
When temptation calls, return to your purpose. Story. The soldier in the storm. A young soldier was caught in a storm. His camp fled. The wind was freezing. The rain cut like knives. But he kept walking. Each step said, "Not yet."
Not finished.
Not broken. By morning he reached the camp of his commander. He was half dead but alive. His commander looked at him and said, "1,000 men with your will could conquer the world." That soldier was later promoted. Not for strength, not for intelligence, but for will. The enemies of will comfort. It whispers, "Rest, relax, enjoy." Too much comfort makes iron rust. Distraction. Endless entertainment weakens focus.
A man addicted to distraction cannot hold strong will.
Fear. Fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of pain. Fear eats will from inside. Weak company. Surrounding yourself with quitters, cowards, and addicts infects your will. Reflection. Questions. Do I finish what I start? Do I embrace discomfort or do I run from it? Is my purpose strong enough to keep me standing when pain comes? Am I building will daily or letting it decay? The core lesson of point 9, the iron will, is the foundation of all greatness. Without it, no talent survives, no strategy lasts, no empire endures. Every man must forge his own will, not in comfort but in fire, not in safety but in struggle. Remember, pain is the blacksmith, discipline is the hammer, purpose is the fire. You are the steel. When you build an iron will, the world bends before you. Obstacles turn into stepping stones. Rejection turns into redirection. Failure turns into fuel. Most men will live as glass, fragile, weak, breakable.
A few will live as iron, unbending, unbreaking, unyielding. The choice is yours.
Build your will or be broken by the world. Point 10, the final law, control or be controlled. In the end, life always reduces to one law. A law older than kingdoms, deeper than philosophy, harsher than morality. Control or be controlled. If you do not control your mind, your desires, your time, your environment, your destiny, then someone else will. No man escapes this law. You are either the master or you are the slave. You are either writing the script or you are an actor in someone else's play. The nature of control is not cruelty. Control is not dictatorship. Control is not arrogance. Control is direction. It is the ability to steer your own ship in the storm. It is the power to command yourself before commanding others. The weak man lives on autopilot, controlled by fear, habits, society, and other people's opinions. The strong man lives awake. He controls his own mind first, then bends the world around him. Why control decides everything, every empire. Every company, every relationship, every life rises or falls by control. The man who cannot control his anger loses battles. The man who cannot control his desires becomes a slave to them. The man who cannot control his time wastes his years. The man who cannot control his destiny becomes a pawn in the games of others. The final law says, if you do not control, you will be controlled. The first control, the self before you command armies, before you lead people. Before you build empires, you must master yourself. Control of the mind. Your thoughts are either your servants or your masters. Most men allow negative thoughts, doubts, and fears to dominate them. A man of power disciplines his mind, chooses what to focus on, and silences the noise within. Control of desire, lust, hunger, greed, distraction. These are chained. The man who cannot say no is already enslaved. Self-control is the first step toward external control. Control of emotions. Anger blinds.
Fear paralyzes.
Envy poisons. The man who controls his emotions is unshakable. Others may rage, panic, or despair. He remains calm, decisive, immovable. Control of time is the most precious resource. Most men waste it on entertainment, gossip, distraction. The man of control spends time like a king spends gold, invested, not wasted. The second control, others. After mastering the self, the next battlefield is people. The truth is simple. People either follow your direction or you follow theirs. In relationships, control decides who sets the tone, who leads, who bends. In business, control decides who creates wealth and who works for it. In politics, control decides who rules and who obeys. But remember, control of others is not just domination. It is influence. It is persuasion. It is bending without breaking, leading without shouting, ruling without always appearing to rule. The third control, destiny. The final battlefield is destiny itself. Most men drift through life like leaves on the river, pushed by currents, winds, and waves. They go where life takes them. The man of control sets his own direction. He does not ask, "Where is the river going?" He builds ships, he commands fleets, he chooses oceans. Destiny is not found, it is built.
Not given, it is taken.
Not controlled by chance, but by choice. Historical lessons. Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon rose from a poor Corsican family to Emperor of France. How? By mastering control at every level. His mind, his army, his nation. He seized destiny with his bare hands and bent Europe to his will. Genghis Khan, from the barren steppes, he united tribes that had fought for centuries. His control over loyalty, fear, and vision turned scattered clans into the greatest empire in history. Steve Jobs controlled not only technology but perception. He shaped how people thought about products, beauty, and innovation. He controlled the narrative, and the world followed. The psychology of control is not about force. It is about influence. Force breaks resistance temporarily. Control dissolves resistance permanently. People follow control when it comes from certainty, confidence without doubt.
Vision, a picture of the future they cannot resist.
Discipline, proof that you live what you demand. The mind itself resists external control, but it obeys internal control. If you dominate yourself, others naturally feel your gravity. Practical training, how to build control 1. Daily self-mastery. Rituals, wake up early. Control your diet. Exercise discipline in work. Refuse useless distractions. Each act of control builds your command muscle. Social influence practice. Learn to speak with calm authority. Use silence as power. Observe people more than you speak. Give direction in small things before commanding in big things. Strategic thinking. Plan long-term, but act daily. See not just the move, but the ripple effect of the move. Learn to sacrifice short-term comfort for long-term dominance. Remove weak dependencies. If you depend on substances, people, or circumstances for happiness, you are controlled. Freedom comes when nothing owns you. Story: The King and the Chessboard Ace. A wise king once challenged a servant to chess. The servant asked for one reward, a grain of rice doubled on each square of the chessboard. The king laughed and agreed. But as the squares filled, the rice multiplied into mountain. By the end, the servant controlled the kingdom's entire supply. The lesson: small controls, compounded daily, lead to absolute power. The enemies of control: addiction. Every addiction is slavery. Fear of opinion. Caring too much about others' judgment makes you their prisoner. Lack of purpose. Without a clear direction, you will always follow someone else's. Weak habits. Habits decide who controls whom, you or your impulses. Reflection. Questions: am I in control of my mind, or does fear dominate me? Am I in control of my desires, or do my desires control me? Am I in control of my time, or do distractions control me?
Am I in control of my destiny, or am I just drifting?
The core lesson of point 10, the final law, is brutal but simple: control or be controlled. Every moment of life obeys this law. If you control yourself, you are free. If not, you are a slave. If you control your time, you live with purpose. If not, life wastes you. If you control others, you lead. If not, you follow. If you control destiny, you create history. If not, you disappear in it. The man who builds control builds empire. The man who loses control loses everything, so master the law. Begin with yourself, extend to others, and seize your destiny, because in the end, no excuses remain. No middle ground survives. You either command life, or life commands you. You either shape history, or history forgets you, control, or be controlled. The final law. Closing. In the end, every lesson, every story, every strategy brings you to one truth. A man is not born powerful. He becomes powerful, not by chance, not by luck, but by law, the law of self-mastery, the law of discipline, the law of control. 10 principles forged in fire.
10 weapons sharper than steel. The choice.
Remain as the world shaped you, weak, distracted, forgotten. Or rise as the world fears you, focused, unbreakable, remembered. Because in this life, you don't get what you want.
You get what you take. And you don't get remembered for what you dreamed.
You get remembered for what you conquered. So walk forward, not as glass, but as iron. Not as the controlled, but as the controller. The final law has already been written. Control or be controlled.